The air outside the glass doors grew heavier as silence spread across the entrance. Everyone's eyes shifted between me and the man standing in that fake uniform, his smile too calm for someone just exposed as a fraud. The guards were nervous, the employees unsettled, and yet he seemed completely unfazed. That smile was what disturbed me most. It wasn't the expression of a man caught in a lie, but of someone who still thought he had the upper hand. "Call the police," I said, firmly to one of the guards. He immediately reached for his phone. But before he could dial, the man in the fake uniform raised his hand casually, as if signaling a pause. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," he said, his voice smooth, steady. The guard froze, glancing at me for reassurance. My pulse quickened. The man's confidence hadn't cracked even after being exposed. That meant he had leverage, or at least believed he did. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "What are you really here for?" His smirk deepened, and he leaned in slightly. "Let's just say, I need something inside, and I'm willing to walk in and take it." His words were quiet, but sharp enough to slice through my composure. I pulled back, studying his face. He was calm, calculated, too professional to be just a random scammer. My mind raced. Was it data? Money? Documents? Or something more dangerous? The company stored not only information, but also prototypes, contracts, and deals worth millions. A breach here could destroy everything we had built. The guards, sensing tension, stepped closer, ready to drag him out. But once again, his words stopped them. "Touch me, and there will be consequences. Not for me, for all of you." The whispering among employees turned into anxious murmurs. Fear was spreading, and that was exactly what he wanted. I couldn't let panic control the situation. I raised my hand to silence the guards and faced him directly. "If you think fear is going to get you inside, you've chosen the wrong place." For the first time, his smile faded. He studied me with piercing eyes as if reassessing his opponent. The air between us was thick with unspoken tension. Then, slowly, he set the clipboard he carried down on the security desk. He flipped it open, revealing pages filled with notes, floor plans, and access codes. My blood ran cold. He knew. He knew the building. He knew the layout. He knew details that were supposed to be locked behind walls of confidentiality. My employees gasped as they recognized the sketches of our offices, stairwells, restricted areas. This wasn't improvisation. This was planned, meticulously. The hook tightened here. He wasn't a petty imposter. He was prepared, and he had inside information. Someone from within had helped him. That realization hit me like ice. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice low, careful not to betray the storm raging inside me. He shrugged casually. "Information has a way of traveling. You'd be surprised how many of your people are willing to talk, for the right price." Betrayal. The word burned in my chest. Somewhere in my company, someone had sold us out. He leaned closer, lowering his voice again. "Now, we can do this. The easy way. You let me in, I get what I came for, and I walk out quietly. Or, we do this the hard way, and trust me, you don't want that." The guards shifted uncomfortably, employees edged back, but I stood my ground. My silence wasn't weakness, it was calculation. I was measuring him, gauging his confidence, looking for the crack in his armor. Finally, I asked, "And what exactly do you think you'll find inside?" He smiled again, but this time it wasn't arrogance. It was something darker. "The one thing you've been hiding. And when I walk out with it, you'll understand why no wall, no lock, no guard can keep me out." The employees gasped again. He wasn't bluffing anymore. He was threatening the very foundation of what I built. I glanced at the guards, signaling them to hold their ground. If he wanted in, he would have to go through me. But then something happened that made my skin crawl. He pulled a small device from his pocket, no larger than a phone. He pressed a button, and a faint beep echoed from somewhere deep inside the building. At that exact moment, the lights above us flickered. Gasps filled the air. The employees panicked, some stepping backward, some whispering about a bomb, some already reaching for their phones. The man in the fake uniform chuckled softly, enjoying the chaos. "Now you see," he said smoothly, "I'm already inside." That was the hook. The revelation that his reach had already penetrated our building, that we were no longer just facing an intruder at the door, we were facing a threat that was already within. I clenched my fists, forcing calm into my voice. "If you've planted something, then you've also given me a reason to destroy you right here." He tilted his head, unconcerned. "Destroy me? I don't think so. You need me, because only I know how far this goes." Every second felt like an eternity. My employees' eyes were on me. Fear was rising like floodwater, and I couldn't let it consume them. Leadership isn't about knowing every answer. It's about holding steady when everyone else shakes. Stepped closer until I was only inches from his face. "You've made one mistake," I said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" I leaned in, my eyes locked on his. "You came to my house." The crowd behind me stirred, hope flickering in their faces. He frowned slightly, his smirk faltering for the first time. Before he could reply, sirens wailed in the distance. The guards had already contacted backup security units, and now the unmistakable sound of approaching reinforcements filled the air. His eyes darted toward the gate, his composure cracking. But instead of running, he did something unexpected. He pressed another button on the device. This time, alarms blared inside the building itself. Employees screamed, guards rushed toward the doors, chaos erupted. He leaned back, smiling once again, his voice barely audible over the noise. "You may run this company, but today, I run your fear." And in that instant, I realized the fight had only just begun. The morning started like any other. The glass doors of my company reflected the golden sun as employees walked in, some with tired eyes, some with fresh smiles, all carrying the silent determination that builds an empire brick by brick. I had been running this company for years, and every single detail of the building, the staff, and the daily rhythm of entry and exit was known to me. Nothing unusual ever slipped past me, or so I thought. That day, something happened that reminded me how fragile security can be, how deception wears the sharpest disguise, and how one man's arrogance can trigger a chain of events that nobody in the office would ever forget. He arrived just as the shift changed, dressed in a crisp uniform, black boots polished to shine, cap slightly tilted, and in his hand a clipboard. That made him look official. To any ordinary person, he was just another security guard reporting for duty. His badge glinted in the morning light, his voice was steady, his walk confident. But the moment I saw him demand entry at the gate, something inside me froze. I knew every security guard we had, every face, every posture. This man was not one of them. Still, he moved like he belonged. He ordered the other guards to step aside, claiming there had been a last-minute change, that he had been sent by higher management to take over the morning shift. His tone was sharp, commanding, the kind of tone that makes ordinary workers nervous. Some of the guards hesitated, confused, and looked at each other. He leaned in, his voice lower now, carrying the weight of authority. "I need to get inside. This is urgent. Don't make me report you." The guards were about to let him pass. I watched from a short distance, blending in with the arriving staff. Nobody knew who I was at that moment. Most new employees hadn't even seen my face. I kept myself low profile on purpose. And yet here was a stranger, dressed like one of our own, trying to slip through the cracks of our system. My mind raced. Who was he? What did he want? Why here? Why today? For a second, doubt crept in. He looked so convincing. His badge even had our company logo. His tone matched the professionalism of real officers. He checked his watch, tapped his boot, faked. Impatience like a man with responsibility. If I had not built this company myself, I too might have believed him. And that is when it hit me. The power of deception is not in violence, not in force, but in confidence. The moment he tried to step past the entrance, I made my move. I approached quietly, blending with a group of employees entering the building. He didn't recognize me, didn't even look twice. To him, I was just another worker. He barked at the guards again, demanding they open the secondary door for him. The guards gave in and began to unlock it. My heart pounded, but my face remained calm. I stepped closer until I stood right behind him. "Interesting uniform," I said softly. He turned sharply, eyes narrowing at me. For a split second, his face betrayed uncertainty. Then he smirked, straightened his cap, and replied, "Standard issue. Why do you ask?" I smiled back, but my eyes didn't. "Because I own this company," I said. The silence that followed was electric. The guards froze, their keys mid-turn. Employees nearby gasped, whispers spreading like wildfire. The fake guard's face twitched, his confidence slipping. For the first time, he seemed unsure of his ground. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. You must be mistaken. I was told to be here." I stepped closer, my voice steady, my presence firm. "Told by who?" And there it was, the crack. His eyes darted left, then right, searching for an answer that wasn't there. His polished confidence began to rust in front of the truth. People around us leaned in, waiting, watching. The guards who had almost obeyed him now looked ashamed, realizing they had nearly let a fraud into the heart of our company. But here is where the hook tightened. Instead of backing down, he doubled down. "Listen," he said loudly, trying to reclaim authority. "I don't care who you are, I have instructions. If you interfere, you will be held responsible." That was his mistake. You see, arrogance is always louder than truth. The crowd stiffened, sensing the storm. My heart hammered, but my face remained calm. In that moment, I knew two things. This man was not just pretending for fun, and whatever reason brought him here, it was bigger than a single lie. I signaled to one of the guards quietly. "Check his ID." The fake guard tensed, his hand tightening around the clipboard. "That won't be necessary," he snapped. But it was too late. The guard reached for the badge. It looked real at first glance, but up close it was nothing more than a clever counterfeit. The colors were slightly off, the numbers didn't match our sequence, and the lamination was cheap. Gasps filled the air. The truth was exposed. Yet, the man didn't run. Instead, he smiled. A chilling, unsettling smile. "You're smarter than I thought," he said. "But this isn't over." And in that instant, I realized this was not a random imposter. He was here for something. Something. Inside the building. Something he couldn't leave without. And the fact that he stood his ground even after being exposed meant he was either desperate or dangerous. That was when the real fear set in. Because if he was willing to risk everything to get in, what exactly was waiting inside that he wanted so badly? The employees whispered louder now. The guards looked to me for direction, and the man's smile never wavered. 11 floors of business, data, secrets, and people stood behind those glass doors. My company, my responsibility. And at that moment I understood the day was only just beginning. The alarms rang like a storm tearing through the heart of the building. Red lights flashed against the glass walls, the sound of panic spread among employees, and footsteps echoed as people tried to make sense of the chaos. The fake security guard stood still, unfazed, his thumb resting on the small device as if he were the conductor of this madness. His calmness was more terrifying than the noise itself. I forced myself not to blink, not to let fear show on my face. If he wanted fear, I wouldn't give it to him. "What did you do?" I demanded, my voice cutting through the chaos. He tilted his head and replied almost casually, "Just a reminder that I control more than you think." His eyes glinted with a dangerous satisfaction. The guards rushed to the doors trying to lock down the building, but every time one section closed, another alarm triggered. It was like he had woven himself into the very nerves of the place. He turned his gaze back to me, smirking as if reading my thoughts. "You built this empire. But you forgot, every empire has cracks, and I've already slipped through yours." His words stabbed deep, but I refused to let him see it. "If you've come this far," I said firmly, "then you know one thing about me. I don't break." The crowd, trembling moments ago, steadied slightly, hearing strength in my voice. They needed it. They needed to believe. The fake guard narrowed his eyes. "We'll see." Before I could react, he pressed another sequence of buttons. The alarms grew louder, but this time, something else happened. The elevators locked in place, trapping employees between floors. A wave of panic swept through as people screamed from inside the metal cages, pounding on doors. The man smiled, enjoying the chaos. "Now you understand. You can't stop me. But you can bargain." The word hung in the air like poison. Bargain. He wanted something specific, and he believed I was desperate enough to give it to him. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "What do you want?" He didn't hesitate. "Access to the restricted floor." My stomach tightened. The restricted floor wasn't just another office space. It held our most confidential files, the blueprints of deals, the archives of contracts, the very DNA of our company's existence. It was the heart of everything we protected, and he wanted it. I shook my head slowly. "That floor is off limits, even for me sometimes." He chuckled. "Then today is the exception." For a moment, everything froze. Employees held their breath. The guards waited for my command, and the alarms screamed around us like sirens of judgment. I looked at him carefully, studying his face, his body language, his determination. He wasn't bluffing. He had come for this and would risk everything to get it. But then, in the middle of that storm, a thought pierced through. If he had access to alarms, layouts, even elevator systems, then he wasn't alone. He had help, an insider. And that meant, as dangerous as he wasn't untouchable. Because for every crack in an empire, there is always a way to seal it. I leaned in, my voice sharp. "You've revealed too much. I know you didn't do this alone. And when I find the one who helped you, both of you will regret ever stepping into my house." For the first time, his smirk faltered. Just slightly, but enough. That was the crack I needed. I signaled the guards subtly, buying time. Then I raised my voice, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You may think you control this place, but you've forgotten one thing. This company isn't built on walls or codes. It's built on people, and no matter what you do, they will not bow to you." The employees stirred, their fear turning slowly into defiance. Whispers became murmurs. Murmurs became voices. They stood taller, their eyes shifting from panic to anger. The man noticed it too. His control was slipping. He gritted his teeth, pressing his device again, but this time nothing happened. The guards had already started shutting down his signals with backup security protocols. His eyes widened, fury flashing across his face. "What did you do?" I allowed myself a small, cold smile. "You underestimated me." At that moment, the backup security team stormed through the gates. armed and ready. The fake guard tried to run, but the crowd had shifted. Employees who had cowered minutes ago now stood in his path, blocking his escape. He shoved, pushed, but the tide had turned against him. The guards tackled him to the ground, wrenching the device from his hand. He struggled, his uniform wrinkled, his cap falling off, exposing not a man of authority but a man of desperation. They cuffed him, dragged him to his feet, and yet, even then, he glared at me with burning eyes. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You'll see. You can't stop what's coming." His words echoed as they pulled him away. The alarms were silenced, the lights steadied, and slowly, order returned. But his warning lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Employees looked to me, their faces a mix of relief and fear. I stood tall, my voice calm but unyielding. Today we learned something important. Strength isn't in walls or locks. Strength is in vigilance. We protect not just this building but each other. And no intruder, no matter how clever, can take that from us. The crowd nodded, their fear dissolving into pride. The storm had passed, but its memory would not be forgotten. Later, as I stood in my office overlooking the city, I replayed his words in my mind. "You can't stop what's coming." What had he meant? Was this just the beginning? My company was safe for now, but the war he hinted at had only just begun. And as the sun set beyond the skyline, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the last time someone would test me, test my people, test the empire we had built. But next time, I would be ready. Because when you run the company, you don't just guard the doors, you guard the future.